Welcome everyone to the latest episode of Women in AV podcast. With me today is Jennifer Goodyear, my amazing co-host. Hey, Jen.
Hey, Erica. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm going to let you introduce our guests today, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I will. So our first guest today is Brittany DiCesare with Control Concepts. We've known Brittany a long time and we just love her. So we're really happy to have her back on the show. She was on the show at Infocom. And then I'm really excited because we have our first male guest today, and it's a longtime friend, first-time caller, Matt Buckner from Sennheiser. And thanks you both for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah, I think we wanted to kick it off and talk about, because Brittany, I don't know where you started in AV. I know where I met you, which was with AVIXA through the Women's Council. And then you had to completely pivot your career, basically. So I just kind of wanted to talk to you about that and see how that change went about. And you're doing great with Steve, so...
Yeah. So I officially full-time started my industry career at AVIXA. But I had been helping and working part-time with my church, doing their technology management and working with all of their live streaming technology and helping to produce their services. So I had all the hands-on experience in doing that. And I just couldn't figure out how to make a career out of it outside of my church. And in our area, we knew we needed to have something that helped us financially outside of our house of worship. So I was working in real estate for a little while and heard about AVIXA, and I was like, wait, something like this exists? Like, how did I not know about this? And so it was really just an eye-opening moment. And I got to work alongside Amanda Eberly, who was just absolutely wonderful. I was a part of her team. She's the one that was telling me all about AVIXA and how I needed to be a part of this. She brought me into her team, and it was an amazing couple of years there. Loved getting to know the industry from a different side of it, being able to talk to all of the different verticals within this amazing industry, getting to meet women like Erica and Jen here, getting to meet a lot of manufacturers, which I didn't realize all of the connections I was making was going to help me further along down the road. After 2020, things started to change within AVIXA. I realized my time there was coming to an end and decided for personal reasons it was time for me to take a step back, and actually decided to leave the industry, take a massive pay cut to do so, to figure out where I needed to be, because I knew this was no longer my full-time future plan and journey. So through that, I had met Steve at AVIXA at ISE in 2020, right before the whole world shut down. And we were just talking about programmers and giving programmers more exposure, but there was no talk of really how I might fit into the Control Concepts world outside of that. And then I believe it was fall of 2021, my husband actually was like, look, you said that the AV industry is your family, it's your home. You're not there right now. What are you doing to get back there? And I was like, well, I'm just waiting for a door to open. And he's like, you've got to take the first step if you want the door to open. So are you going to knock on a door? Or are you going to try and see if something unlocks for you? But you've got to do something if you want to get back there. And he really gave me that push that I needed to have courage to raise my hand and say, hey, I'm ready to get back into the industry. Please, someone, if you have an idea of someone who's looking, let me know. And Steve immediately reached out and was like, people have recommended you to me 2 different times. I really want you to talk to me about Control Concepts. I'd love to have you as part of the team. But it was a sales job and I'm not a salesperson. So I was like, yeah, we can talk about it, but I don't think this is the right fit for me. And he goes, let's just talk about it. So we talked several different times, and each time it was really him convincing me that this, although technically in sales, isn't a sales job. It's really just building relationships. And that's what I did at AVIXA. And after about a month and a half of different conversations, decided Control Concepts is definitely my home. And it's been great to take the relationships I've built, continue building more relationships here at Control Concepts, and pivot in a different way within the industry. So
Yeah, and you've had to learn how to work with all the programmers and different type of people. That's a whole different side of the industry, programmers.
It is. Programmers are typically very reserved, and I can't do what they do, and I'm not even going to pretend to know what they do outside of coding my MySpace page back in the day. That's all I know how to do. And changing my layouts and my backgrounds and all of that. But past that, please don't ask me to ever program a thing. But they're really the unsung heroes in our industry, and they don't get a lot of recognition that they deserve. And so it's been great to be able to come alongside people who have been programmers in the industry. And now we've pivoted our business from being independent programmers to actually building the building blocks for programmers to use in the field. So now we're working for manufacturers, but we're building the tools programmers need. So we get to help programmers like us every single day. And so it's really a very rewarding experience to be able to take our 25-year plus history and say, we've been there, we've done that, we know the shoes that you're filling. We get the problem areas, we get the sticking points, and we're here to help you. So it's really been great. I haven't had to learn the programming languages, but it's been great to be able to at least speak to it and learn how to bridge between product managers or integrators or marketing people, bridge that to the more technical people and those who are definitely way deeper into the weeds than some people may care to be at, and helping them along the way. So it's a fun journey, and I learn something new every day. So that's a plus.
That's awesome. Matt, I would love to hear your origin story, because this is my first time meeting you as well. But I mean, Jen has talked you up, so just keep that in mind.
I actually started off in on the retail side of things in a proper mom and pop shop years ago, and back when someone literally had to die to get a job working in a music store, so there were coveted jobs, and I was really right place, right time to jump into that position. And I remember too that, the owner of the store always told me that he had me in his manager training program. And I always chuckled because he would say things like that when I was taking out the trash or, painting the walls for free on the weekends, things like that. But he honestly was showing me how to run a small independent music store from top to bottom. And from there, my career took off in the music industry. And really my next inflection point was when I saw a manufacturer's rep for the first time on the other side of the counter. And I was like, wow, what do you do? How do I get that job? And of course, that particular rep was like, you don't want my job. Like, and I was like, well, I think I do. Like, it seemed really cool.
Dad?
It was not your dad. But yeah, I actually went into managing big box stores from the independent shop, and from there transitioned over onto the manufacturer's rep side of things, went into international distribution for a moment, and then wound up here at Sennheiser, which is really, I couldn't be happier with that trajectory, because also too, as I think I was much the same as Brittany, whereas if you would have asked me, hey, how would you like an exciting career in sales? I would have gone hard pass. I don't want to be in sales. But really, I've never felt like I've been involved in sales, even though that's been a part of my title in my entire career. It really is about nurturing relationships, relationship development, and now business development with Sennheiser.
One of the reasons I wanted to have Nat on specifically is not meaning to age you, Matt, but you've known my family longer than I've been alive. So
there it is. Thank you for outing me.
So you've always been a safe place for me within the industry, but we really, really connected when I was pregnant. And you were the most honest person with me. And you would think that, I'm not saying that the mothers I knew weren't supportive or weren't helping me in any way, but you were the one that was really laying out, like, this is what's coming your way. And you did it every step of the way. Like, once we got through the newborn phase, you were like, congratulations, now this is coming your way. And I think our last conversation, I think you were checking Life 360 on your son. You're like, see, this never ends. You're always worried about them. And so it's just been really nice to get that parenting advice from you and get to talk to you about it, because it shows that no one else really talks about it unless you're really close with someone, and that so many of us are parents and don't know. Brittany, I didn't know you were a parent till recently, and your boys are obviously older than my daughter is. So I just really wanted to talk about, first of all, the side of it where I feel like maybe as moms, we kind of try to hide it because maybe anyone will think, oh, she doesn't have enough bandwidth to balance a career and her children, as we're constantly asked. But as a man, Matt, do you feel like you're ever really asked, how do you do it?
Not often. And I think that's, we could probably point to toxic masculinity as a reason for that, right? That it's like, oh, I don't care. That's somebody else deals with that. I know that I've encountered it, and on the negative side of it, where, had employers ask me, I'm going to stay home with my sick child today. Well, can't your wife do that? It's like, well, let's pretend you didn't ask me that question, right? So I've been on the other side of it, a lot. And I guess I've also felt like, that I'm not supposed to talk about it. Maybe that it's not, it's like, well, what do you know about it? It's so, and also I think that, another trait of toxic masculinity is to put up that strong, silent front that everything's fine. It's all fine. There's no problems here. I don't have any emotions. Everything's good. I'm right where I want to be right now. And not being able to express that. I've gotten a lot better as I've gotten older at expressing that, and I definitely prioritize, some things that I missed earlier in my career, I refuse to miss now, so that football game, that school function, it's that I'm going to schedule around that. That's what's most important, where I might not have even mentioned it before. I might have just said, well, I got to work, So, and of course, I think that's also a requirement you put on yourself. You kind of project what you think your employer is thinking, where it's like, well, I better not ask for time off for a family related thing. I need to appear that I'm the consummate professional and that my life revolves around my career, and that I don't have any outside distractions, that I just work 24/7. And I think something that helped. I mean, you and I have had this conversation many times, Jennifer, that the positive things that have come out of COVID, where you're allowed to have dogs barking in the background now. You're allowed to see your son walk behind you in your camera shot. You're allowed to have a life. Before, I think, it was very like, I'm pretending I'm in an office. I'm pretending that this is a corporate environment. There's, I don't have a family. I live in this bubble. It's all about work. And now those walls have come down, I think, for the better. I think that, of course I have a dog. Of course I have children. Of course there's other people in my house, and there's noise and distractions. That's normal. Why we thought professionalism meant a library environment is beyond me, but I think a lot of that's come down, and I think it's helped all of us. Obviously, when work from home became live at work, we had to find that balance, or we were going to go insane. That it's like, okay, I've got to start to compartmentalize and prioritize what's really important, because, virtual work, a hybrid workplace, lends itself to, just working 24 hours a day. So
that definitely does. Brittany just moved into her new office. Her boys are. How's that going, by the way?
Okay, most days. It depends on the evening and how tired they are, but. Yeah, we just bunked the boys, and they seem to have fun with it most of the time. But Matt, I love what you said, and I love that you brought to mind that. Speaking of dogs, my dog's going ballistic. Sorry.
It's allowed now.
It's allowed. setting those boundaries around your life. And that's something my husband and I sat down before we decided to start our family. And we both made it very clear, like, we're very driven people. We both have a lot we want to offer this world, but there are sacrifices we're not willing to make. And one of those is our children. And so making sure that as they pursue sports, as they pursue different activities, that we are there for those moments because we don't want to miss those. And also making sure, everyone has these unrealized assumptions of roles within the home. And for my husband and I, we were very specific when we started our life together that we're partners. And there are times where it's expected that I need to pick up a little more slack than normal. And sometimes he does that for me, depending on where life is at, where we're at personally, where we're at with our careers. Sometimes, it's that give and take. And sometimes we're giving 90%. And sometimes we only have 30% to give and our spouse has to pick up that slack. And for us, it was making sure there are no assumed roles here. When the children are sick, it's not assumed that I'm the one taking care of them just because I'm the mom. We both will sit down and, oh, hey, this kid's sick, can't go to school today. Who has the more flexible schedule today? Who has a little bit more to give where they can stay home? My husband, he's a security integrator, so he's often out in the field. So oftentimes that is me, but it's never the assumption just because of my gender, just because of the role I play in the home. It is never assumed. And I think that's something that you just have to communicate with your partner and with your employer. My employers have always been very supportive of that because they know I'm not just an employee. I love what I do. I am 100% devoted to my career, but I also have a family. And that's probably the most important thing I'll ever give to this world is how I raise my children. And so making sure that I'm present and having the flexibility, that's always been a part of the negotiation as I've looked into new careers, is making sure that flexibility is there, and that understanding is there.
Speaking on that 50-50 that you're talking about, Matt already knows what I'm going to ask him, but he had suggested a book he's friends with my husband, worlds colliding, and he had suggested a book to us called The 80-80 Marriage. Do you mind talking about that a little bit, Matt?
If you frame it that way, obviously 80-80 adds up to more than 100%, but it's with the concept of radical generosity, which is exactly what Brittany was just speaking to, is that, and the concept of 50-50, like a lot of people might view a partnership as 50%. And obviously that's an impossible task. And that is not working as a team. You said that you and your husband are partners. That's where, so it can't be 50-50 because it's a partnership. So that's exactly what the 80-80 marriage speaks to. And, I was excited when I heard a podcast that interviewed this author, this husband and wife team, because it totally resonated with me. And it also pointed out that, even my thinking was wrong, that I was still maybe viewing my marriage as 50-50, that because of that, some things needed to be reciprocal. And also there needed to be equity always, that it's well, no, I took the trash out yesterday. You have to take the trash out today. And that's ridiculous, first of all, and outdated, but also, it's that, if you reframe it and just think my role is 80%, then that really takes care of everything. And the concept of radical generosity, that, hey, I'm your partner. I'm here to help always, the same way we approach our clients at work and our teammates at work. I'm here to help. How can I help? A lot of times we don't look at our marriage that way. We want it to be like, hey, I made dinner last night. It's your turn to make dinner tonight, and that's ridiculous. It shouldn't be equitable. It can't be equitable. So, I think for me, it just opened up, everything was new. And it totally just that, statement of 80-80 and thinking about it from a position of radical generosity really helped me. And of course, I've shared it with you, shared it with any of my friends that are married, which obviously it was met with some mixed results. I think a lot of some people were like, I'm not interested in exploring radical generosity at all. It's but I think that it's hilarious that Brittany set it up, perfectly, because that's exactly the concept. It's a true partnership. It's from a position of being of assistance, being of service, which it sounds like, Brittany, you've kind of framed your whole life around, really. I think and I love that, I wish that I had that conversation with myself and my wife a long time ago in my career path and our marriage too. I don't think, uh, I know that we never intentionally did that. Of course, we've had those conversations to guide our relationship and our path through life, but to intentionally sit down and go, here's our values, here's our path, here's our true trajectory. That's really inspiring to me. I'm really happy to hear you say that.
We've been very blessed in that we've had we've always been drawn to those who have life experience that we don't. And we've always looked for mentors within our own lives, within our careers, and within our marriage. And so we've had so many people pour into us who were already 15, 20 years into their marriage and gave us that advice. And, we got married very young. I was 23 when we got married. And for us, we've always been old souls and drawn to those older than us. So I think that helped in all of that as well. But we really wanted to learn from others. And we didn't want to set out on the path of, oh, we just know it all. We've got it all figured out. Oh my gosh. Like, I come from a very broken home. My husband comes from a very broken home. We've seen broken marriage and broken families, and we didn't want that for ourselves. And so we decided to kind of go against the grain and figure out how we do this. And luckily we were able to come alongside others who were willing to invest in us. And I think we've looked at how we do that in our careers too. And there's so many in this industry who have been here for so long, who have so much experience to give. And we have to go to them and just tell me all the things. Give me all of the industry history. Tell me all the things you learned. Tell me the things you wish you didn't do, so I know not to do it. And I understand why it didn't work out for you in that way. And we can't be afraid to question things too. And I try to approach the industry in my career in the same way. I want to understand all of the history and all of the things that happen so I can be better for our industry in the future.
Erica, you have a perspective that I kind of want to get. I was thinking when Brittany was saying she comes home, she unpacks, all that. Not only are you and Joel, your husband, both in the AV industry, but you're both in the same company. So a lot of times you are traveling I'm assuming, I can't believe we haven't talked about this, but I'm assuming you're traveling for the same thing. So when you come home, you're both coming home and need to unpack and would love the house and to be clean and dinner to be ready. How do you guys juggle? You're both out of the house and gone and coming back and all of that.
That's a great question. I think it just magically both of us look around and think about the jobs that need to be done. Laundry needs to be done. Groceries need to be got. Dinner needs to be made. Somebody needs to go pick up the dogs because if we're both gone, then they're being boarded. And, it's more of a divide and conquer than, here's the plan. It's more like, hey, I really need to go do this. Do you mind making dinner? And, it's these unwritten agreements, I guess.
I like that. I think that my wife and I kind of fell into that divide and conquer strategy early on too. And it also is a lot of times not verbal communication. So we kind of just, I think where I struggle is when we have to do something together, so I like divide and conquer. It's like, I'll make dinner, you do the laundry. It's like, but let's make dinner together. And I'm like, what's that look like?
Yeah, no, I totally get that. And for me, it's I'll do all the sides and prep everything inside, and then I'll send him outside with the grills and the smoker.
See, that's smart. Divide and conquer.
Matt and I discussed that. we were talking about working alongside your spouse, and I actually met my husband. We were both bartending together at a little tiny Macaroni Grill bar, and it was really smaller than this office back there. So we had to really learn how to work together, and it was in Boca, so people were rude and would always have to get really defensive of me, and he didn't care what was going on because he just got back from the Navy. So I really just got to see this side of him that we weren't dating at the time, but I was like, I like working with this person. And that's really kind of what marriage and parenting and all that comes down to, is whether you're working together at the same time or working, well, one of you's in Germany and the other one's stateside. It's that working together.
I will say that my husband is my favorite coworker. And so this is our second company working together. Right. In AV. I mean, like, what are the odds?
Right.
And it's nice. I mean, it's not nice because after work, all we do is talk about work. But it's nice because I always have a sounding board that understands where I'm coming from and the problem that needs to be solved, and that we work really well in that way together.
For me, my career is also my passion. So when I'm not working, I'm thinking about work, I'm talking about work, I'm doing something that looks very similar to work. And I don't have a problem with that. And I know that, and neither does my wife. Obviously, she's under no illusion of who she married, and she knows that, this is all I do, but that I also love it and I'm passionate about it. But I've had, other couples. So you go out for that date and there's like these rules at the table. It's like, no shop talk. We're not talking about work tonight. I'm like, then I'm done. Like I can go to the car then, because I don't have anything else to contribute except what happened this week at work, so.
And if it's not work, like for me, my hobbies are also work, right? We have the podcast, we have Rosie Riveters. I'm chairing the content and learning committee at Avixa. Like those are the things that also take up my time. So that's what I'm talking about.
Do you run into that? Do people criticize you that it's like, oh, you're a workaholic, you really need to stop, and I don't want to hear about all your work related stuff. And I mean, and I guess we're all blessed to work in an industry that we are passionate about. And but I do kind of envy people too that can clock in at 9 and clock out at 5, and they go home and they don't think about work anymore at all. That's envious, but at the same time, it's not a burden, and it's not a negative thing. The fact that I'm turning over projects in my head over the weekend a lot of times helps me on Monday morning, and vice versa too. A lot of like right now, we're doing a podcast. This is work related, but I mean, but also what else would we be doing? Like, this is the things we think about, that it's like, well, what's your side hustle going to be? How about a podcast? Great. There's microphones here. It's like, I like it.
I actually get criticized about that all the time so if my friends come out and hang out with Bert and I somewhere at a bar, and they're like, are you guys really talking about, or you have nothing else to talk about? Or people, or our significant others will say, oh, you didn't tell me this, and Bert did. And I was like, honestly, Bert and I talk 95% about work.
Yeah.
Like he's my brother. I love him. We have other things in common, but if we're going to choose something to talk about, we both love this industry. We love our job and we love our company. It's what we're going to talk about.
Well, and I think like my husband and I, one of our favorite things outside of baseball season, because both of our boys play baseball. So it kind of eats up our Saturday mornings, but we love sitting on the porch Saturday mornings and with a cup of coffee, and we literally talk about business. It's not always our business. We just think about business principles or ideas or what we would do in a situation. It's one of the things we have in common. And so we'll talk about how we might be able to relate that. Both my husband and I are very much invested in EOS. And if you don't know what that is, look it up, but it's pretty cool especially for smaller companies. But it's essentially an operating system for businesses. And we're both very much, there's a term in there called an integrator, not like our integrators, but very similar. But essentially the person that does all the day-to-day and the operations and really helps build out that company and achieve the dream, make the dreams possible of typically the entrepreneur or the visionary. And so both my husband and I are very integrator minded in that we aren't necessarily always the big picture thinkers and the one with all of the ideas, but we love figuring out how to make those ideas happen. So he's my sounding board when I have things at work that I'm trying to figure out how we're going to make this work. He's the one that's giving me advice and that outside perspective sometimes. He came with me to ISE this year in Barcelona. Steve brought his wife, and we talked about work all the time because we're all four of us are so invested in what we are and what we do and this company and how we're serving the industry. And so to be able to have a spouse who's as invested in my career as I am and who's willing to give up vacation time to go to Barcelona, I know, such a travesty. It's also the first work function he's ever been to with me in this industry. And he was like, I have seen a different side of you. Like, you are so take charge and confident in this industry. And it's so different from who I thought you were. And I was like, oh, well, that's a nice compliment. Thank you. But to have him so invested that he's willing to take his vacation time to come to a trade show with me. And he literally went to booths and talked to them about how we can help them. And he was like another extension of our company without getting paid to do it. So, we have that in common, and we're so invested in each other that of course, that's what we talk about. That's who we are.
I just brought my husband to my first ever work function in 12 years, and Matt was there. It was a Sennheiser event in Nashville, and I was like, oh, I hope he has someone to talk to or something to do while I'm there. And so Matt is my buddy that I'm going to see. Well, I was going to work, but that's who I'm going to hang out with. And I'm bringing my husband, and I lost them both because they both discovered that they are deeply in love with metal, and they each know more about metal than we'll ever forget. It was incredible. They were buddies. I lost them. They were gone. I ended up being alone, wondering who I'm going to talk to. And sometimes on the drive back, he would be giggling, texting. I'm like, who are you? It was texting Matt. I'm like, what happened? Never bringing you to a work event again.
Well, no, you have to, because he's either going to go to work for your company or he's coming to work for mine. But we are going to get him a job in the music industry. Well,
I was going to say, when you said, are there rules that you're not allowed to talk shop? There is a strict rule in my house for me. Andrew's not allowed to talk shop because I have lost my appetite for enough dinners from him being an ER nurse. Because he's an ER nurse, so he doesn't. For him, it's not gross. So he says it. I'm like, and now I can't eat for the rest of the night. So he's not allowed to talk shop.
I sympathize with that. My mother-in-law was an ER nurse for a time, a traveling nurse too. And yes, the horror stories and you're just like. It would also shut me up. I think it was her mechanism to make me stop talking about work. She's like, well, let me tell you what happened today at my job. And I'd be like, okay, you win.
That's awesome. So this has been an awesome, awesome conversation. Thank you both for joining us today. Brittany, where can people find you?
Well, you can definitely go to controlconcepts.net, and all of my information is there, and you can learn more about what we do and how we serve the industry. You can also find me on all the socials at Britt Dice.
At Britt Dice. Thank you so much. Matt, how about you? Where can people find you?
Sennheiser.com and Neumann.com. And obviously on LinkedIn. I'm on Insta, Facebook, if anyone still uses that platform.
Jen, you have any closing thoughts for us today? This is such a great conversation.
Yeah, this is a great one. And I hope that we can have you both on again because we really enjoyed this. So thank you both for joining us.
Thank you so much. And thank you all so much for being on this episode of the Women in AV podcast.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.